All right, well, now that the dust has settled, let's break down each of Niagara's 4 area ridings. With me in the studio to give her perspective is political commentator Ashley Waters. Ashley, thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you for having me, Kate.
Of course. So let's break it down right from the beginning in terms of some of the early data suggests there was about 45% voter turnout. That's only up 1% from the last election. Thoughts on that?
I think voter apathy is our biggest problem right now. In politics, people are just so tuned out because it's so negative at times, and they think that their vote doesn't matter. When you're seeing these large majorities, at this point in time, I think a lot of people want to learn more, they want to be involved, but they're just not sure where to start. As a former candidate myself in the 22 election, I knew when I was door knocking, most people were really confused about federal versus provincial and explaining who the leader was. I think that for most of the other parties, like opposition, which is NDP, or the Liberals not even having party status, that was their biggest hurdle, was to really get out and get their brand recognition, with Merritt Stiles being the new leader, trying to introduce her to the public, even though she's been the opposition for the past 2 years. But as soon as Bonnie was named leader, Bonnie Carnegie, she had to kind of fight for that media attention. So those attack campaigns came out right away from the PCs, and I think it really paid off for them because everything in the media for them is very positive. They had a lot of ad space to show all the great things Ford was doing economically, and so that really resonated with a lot of voters because they really got that share of the vote.
All right, so let's get started in a conservative stronghold, Niagara West. Sam Oosterhoff has returned to Queen's Park. He received over 20,000 votes. Ashley, really no surprise here.
No, he's an incumbent. He's got name recognition. He was one of the few PC candidates that came and did debates. So when you look at the numbers and you see the lead that he had, I was really surprised and happy to see that the Liberal candidate, Shauna Boyle, came out just second. That was the only riding here in Niagara that we had the second candidate coming in as a Liberal. Everywhere else, it was really the NDP coming out strong with the PCs right next in the vote count.
And just quickly here, we did notice that the lack of conservative candidates in debates this year.
That seems to be a trend. That was the same in the last election. I feel like unless it's an incumbent or someone that knows the speaking points, that the PCs weren't taking the shot that someone might be in a debate, might misspeak, and that they don't want that to be a click ad that the other parties could use against them.
All right, well, now in St. Catharines, Jim Bradley held the seat for over 40 years. In 2018, it changed to Jenny Stevens and the New Democrats. Jenny Stevens is back for her 3rd mandate, but this time, Ashley, Regional Councillor Sal Sorrento, he put up a good fight, and the Conservatives and the Premier made extra stops in Niagara, hoping to get that Conservative vote, and it didn't happen. Are you surprised?
Well, it did not happen. They were hopeful. We're a border town with Niagara, so there was a lot of stops from the Ford campaign when it came to St. Catharines in particular, and when it came to Niagara Falls. However, I think Jenny Stevens and I think Jeff Birch and I think Wayne Gates, they all come out as a very strong progressive team. So many issues in the community, whether it's healthcare, education, if they're dealing with unions or CUPE, they're really putting out a united front on the issues. And so people in their community see them at community events. They know that they have their their support. And I think that meant a lot when it came to this election because Jenny was out there in the debates and we didn't see Sal. So even though there's that name recognition because he is a regional councillor, when it came to the debates, people were really upset that they weren't hearing from everyone. They weren't hearing a costed platform. They weren't even hearing a platform. So I think that that's really how Jenny broke through and was able to maintain her position.
I mean, being a border town and being the fact that Ford ran on, the tariffs and the fear of the tariffs and him being able to, counter that and still coming out with an NDP lead. Any thoughts on that?
It's an anomaly because you're seeing it in every other spot that you're having like the PCs with the victory. However, here in Niagara, everyone was really concerned about healthcare and having ERs shut down, you know, in Port Colborne, or having them shut down in Fort Erie and not having the accessibility. Those things really mattered. So the constituents spoke, and they really want us to have, you know, 24/7 healthcare and emergency rooms.
Since winning a by-election in 2014, Wayne Gates has represented Niagara Falls, Fort Erie, and Niagara-on-the-Lake. The longtime NDP member was sent back to the legislature, winning his seat by more than 10,000 votes. So, Ashley, Wayne really hit the ground running. His campaign was impressive. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Wayne is well known. You say the mustache and everyone in politics knows we're talking about
Yeah.
Wayne Gates. He's very passionate, he's very progressive, and he really speaks for the people of Niagara when he is out at Queen's Park. He's speaking about the issues that we care about: prostate cancer, hospital, housing. So they had a great victory down this way. They really set themselves apart, I feel, with, again, the health sector, making sure that Fort Erie, it was closed, and then they brought it back at least. I know it's not 24/7 and on the weekends. However, that was a big win for this area. And so they're very passionate about making sure that people understand that healthcare is number one down this way. And Wayne is a great advocate for that.
It's still so interesting to me, because our coverage will vary so much from some of the other coverage, just how much tariffs may not have come into play here.
Absolutely. Again, border town, and
Yeah.
we really were worried that that was going to be the big topic of conversation down this way, but people were more concerned that, again, nobody was debating Wayne. Nobody was coming out against him to try to talk about the record that the PCs have held this long. So the fact that they're saying that they needed a mandate, but they already had a year and a half to complete that mandate. So I think people in Niagara don't like change. There's a lot of incumbents that won, and we see that. So there's a lot of politicians here that we have as career politicians. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. In some cases, you know, you might say you want fresh ideas, but if there's a strong opposition and they're a strong voice for Niagara, we're going to see them winning, and you can see that with this vote margin that Wayne was able to capture.
Okay, finally, let's review Niagara Centre. Since the 1980s, the NDP has relied on this riding to form its caucus. So, Ashley, Port Colborne Mayor Bill Steele, he really had a chance to flip the area for the first time in over 3 decades, but voters stuck with orange. Thoughts?
I'm actually not surprised, only because their hospital, their ER, had shut down in Port Colborne. And since he is the mayor there, there was a lot of the mayors coming out in support of Doug Ford, the PC leader. And I think that the residents really didn't like that, because they had their hospital shut down. So for Jeff Birch to come out and say, you know, if I get in, having Merit Styles come down to vouch that they're going to have medical services in the hospital back up and running in this area, really meant a lot to that constituency. And it shows with the votes.
And so, you know, we can see that it was, I mean, it's not a huge victory between, you know, orange and blue.
Right.
Again, Ford really coming down a lot to try and swing that.
Yeah, and again, it's not coming out to defend the record. It's not having every single one of those candidates debating with one another. And, you know, it's not like Bill can't come out and speak. He's on the radio. He does interviews normally in his capacity as mayor, but we didn't see him during this election, and it shows with that vote count.
And another example of what you were saying earlier, NDP, specifically in Niagara, really stick together. They really come out. They show that support, and I guess you can see that showed for the constituents.
It really did, and that was one of the reasons why Merit was down in our riding so often. So it was really funny to see how, you know, the Ford campaign was coming down a lot, and it was funny to see how NDP came down a lot, because they knew that there was going to be that vote. The polling was showing it was so close. So the fact that they were able to push through really speaks to the fact that in the community they want those health services there, and it was a big topic during this election.
And let's wrap this up, Ashley. So, you know, big news, Doug Ford gets another majority, no change in Niagara, and now the election is over. So I think we can assume there's going to be another election this year.
There will, and I hope that, you know, anyone that was upset about how things turned out now, know that you've got to get to the votes, you've got to participate. Federally, there's going to be that election coming around the corner, and Trump tariffs are going to be number one, and Canada's sovereignty.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Ashley, for joining us in the studio today. That's political commentator Ashley Waters.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.